On July 19th, Ansarallah, the Houthis, as they are called in the collective West, in the U.S. warmongering sphere, Ansarallah laid a major blow to Israel's air defense systems, and really you could say the entirety of its so-called military superiority, when it launched the Yafa drone, an unmanned aerial vehicle, into Tel Aviv, close to the U.S. Embassy, killing one Israeli and causing significant enough damage to warrant mass hysteria among those who are currently igniting the region on fire, from Israel, from the United States, the UK. They all have taken major umbrage with this move, and we're about to get to that. But before we do, I want to show you exactly what happened here. Okay, so this is the initial report. One Israeli died from Yemen's first drone strike on Tel Aviv. A total failure of the Iron Dome has worried the Israeli military. If Yemen can strike from 2,500 kilometers, then Hezbollah has the same capabilities. Indeed, that is a big concern. And here's another report on this. Okay, here's another report. It says from Hebrew sources, Israeli sources, estimated that the in Israel that the so-called Houthi drone was in the air for approximately 10 hours during its flight from Yemen to Tel Aviv. It carries an explosive warhead weighing 10 kilograms, and there you see the drone as it was making its way into the area where it finally exploded. Now, this drone showed the whole world that not only is the Iron Dome penetrable, but Israel's entire military is just not capable of tracking this kind of technology from that entire distance. We're talking about not only Israel, but possibly so-called allies or even vassals, or those who are just completely wedded to Israel in some respects, even Saudi Arabia, we could say, given its stance on this issue, lip service on the one hand to the Palestinian cause, of course, and continue to collaborate with Israel in many respects. Yemen had to take a long road to launch this drone and to ensure that it exploded. So this was huge, and it incurred a vast response from Israel. Now, we're going to get to the response from Israel and then why this response is ultimately going to be a failure. So here we have what Israel did the day after. On July 20th, Israel attacks Yemeni civilian facilities while Sana'a vows a heavy price. So this is from Al Mayadeen. Their correspondent reports that civil defense teams continue to battle blazing fires that erupted due to Israeli aggression on oil storage facilities. So what ended up happening was Israel sent war jets to launch a series of military strikes on Yemen in the province of Hodeidah on the Red Sea coast. Israel is saying it was military targets. Yemen is reporting that there have been many martyrs, people who have died, as well as those wounded. We don't know, of course, their character. It's likely civilians have died in this, as is usually the case in anything Israel does. But it says the aggression targeted an oil refinery, leading to a massive fire that can be seen kilometers away. Al Mayadeen's correspondent reported that the airstrikes targeted the Ras Khatib power station in Hodeidah, igniting the oil storage facilities. The Yemeni Ministry of Health reported that martyrs and wounded were a result of the aggression, confirming that civilians suffered severe burns during the fire. Israeli Con 11 channel, citing a U.S. official, reported that Israelis conducted the attack on Yemen. And there you can see, I'm not going to play the video, but you can see the fires that occurred. So there are civil defense teams battling to extinguish the fire in flames, at noting that the size of the blaze is making that task very difficult. These airstrikes were coordinated between U.S. and Israeli forces, indicating the nature of the targets hit. Now, another report that's not here that is now, I don't know if it's confirmed or not, but Italy supposedly helped refuel the Israeli jets that were on the way, the F-35 fighters that were used to strike Yemen. And then what did Yemen say? They said, this is Mohammed Abdul Salam, head of Yemen's negotiating delegation, said that the brutal Israeli aggression will only increase determination and steadfastness of the Yemeni people and its brave armed forces in an escalating manner. And indeed, even before this strike, this is what Yemen was promising. Here is what the Ansarallah had to say. Okay. They said they are going to escalate operations and collaborate with the resistance on all fronts. It confirms its operation against the Israeli occupation will only escalate as long as the aggression on Gaza continues. So remember, this is about Gaza for Yemen. This is not about themselves. They're not going to let Israel deter them because of these airstrikes. Not only these strikes are not going to deter them because U.S. and Royal Navy strikes haven't deterred them, but it will only make their determination that much more steadfast. And you say, Danny, why? That seems suicidal. No, this is existential for Ansarallah. They see themselves as part of this entire war that's been going on. Remember, what has happened to Yemen over the last decade plus in genocide in and of itself, launched by the United States, supported by Israel, the UAE, Saudi Arabia being the leaders. Of course, Israel, not the leader necessarily. So is Saudi Arabia, UAE, the United States sponsoring them, and Israel being a major supporter of the destabilization and the destruction in Yemen, the hunger, the famine, these absolutely genocidal military operations. We can go on and on and on, but Yemen knows what this is like. They are coming to the defense of Gaza, now experiencing its own genocide. So, according to Yemen's Deputy Minister of Information, Yemeni escalation that targeted Tel Aviv is one that will lead to the military defeat of Israel, said Fahmy al-Yusufi. Speaking to Al-Mayadeen, al-Yusufi remarked that the escalation is also a message directed to a NATO coalition that says Sana will not stand idly by as the enemy massacres Gaza. According to the Yemeni official, Yemen is escalating attacks deep into occupied territories, essentially targeting Israeli decision-making and subduing the occupation. Similarly, Ansarallah Politburo member Hizam al-Assad told Al-Mayadeen that the operation was the first among upcoming escalatory operations, adding that Israel should feel its head across all its cities, as what is to come is greater than what has been done as long as the aggression on Gaza continues. We are furthering a new strategic phase in operations against the enemy, noting that Yemeni armed forces are integrated with the resistance in Lebanon, Iraq, and Palestine. So they're promising more, and they have more at their disposal. Okay, this is another report. A source in the Yemeni armed forces reveals to Al-Mayadeen Yemen will continue escalating in the face of Israel until it ceases aggression. It has a vast supply of those drones used on Tel Aviv. The drone Yafa, used in their fighter operation on Tel Aviv, was developed after Arab countries intercepted Yemeni weapons aimed at al-Rashrash, Eilat, an informed source told Al-Mayadeen. The source further stated that the stockpile of such drones is very large and emphasized that this is not the last weapon of its kind, noting that American reports about intercepting these drones are inaccurate. The source highlighted that military operations on occupied Yafa are coinciding with naval operations, according to objectives announced by the Yemeni army, affirming all operations will continue unabated. So Yafa, remember, this is what they're calling Tel Aviv before the formation of Israel, okay? That's why they called it that. The source explained that the Yemeni Armed Forces statement revealed complete readiness for changes, emphasizing that the operation is part of escalatory steps that will not be reversed. They are not going to reverse it, okay? The operation in question was conducted by the newly developed Yafa drone. Yemeni spokesperson Brigadier General Yahya Saree declared early Friday the drone is named after the Palestinian city occupied by Israel, now known as Tel Aviv. The UAV is designed, the unmanned aerial vehicle is designed with the specific aim of evading enemy radar and interception systems, Saree said. The drone reached its target and achieved its operational objectives. Okay? It emphasized that the Yemeni armed forces now consider the area of Tel Aviv to be a strike zone and a primary target for future operations. So, again, Israel, you fucked around. Now you are finding out. Yemen is absolutely not going to stop what it is doing. All right. It's not going to stop. And why? what would give anyone that impression? This has been going on since November 2023, when Ansar Allah stepped up, joined in with the Axis of Resistance, and instituted that blockade in the Red Sea that has devastated the Israeli economy and has coincided with the ongoing fighting between Hezbollah in the south of Lebanon against Israeli forces there. It coincides, of course, with what is happening in Palestine and in Gaza, and it coincides with the overall resistance from Iran in Operation True Promise. And we can go on and on and on with how the resistance has been coming together to come to the aid of Palestine. Now, I want to show you that this is, of course, not just a military affair. The Red Sea blockade has already caused bankruptcy for Eilat port, the port that has received absolutely no economic activity or has been really just completely frozen since Yemen, since Ansar Allah has began its campaign. So this is according to the Middle East Monitor. What happens? It officially declared bankruptcy. 8 months of complete paralysis of commercial activity and a cessation of receiving ships and containers, especially coming from Asian country markets, carrying with them the needs of the economy and the industrial sector. This includes raw materials, intermediate goods, production inputs, machinery and equipment, crude oil and fuel, wheat, food, cars, and other market needs. So the reason for the bankruptcy was successive attacks launched by Ansar Allah on Israeli ships in the Red Sea and the Arabian Sea, as well as targeting of ships in countries supporting the occupation and the genocidal war it is waging against the people of Gaza, notably American and British ships. So shipping traffic declined 85% over this period, basically altogether stopped. And that is why there's bankruptcy in Eilat. That is a major achievement from the resistance, from Ansar Allah itself, and it only points to run front. So now, and I'm going to show you what I've been saying about this because I think it is a point that should be made. So now we have one country. All right, I'm going to show you what I mean by this. One country has declared, a massive number of people in that country have declared that they are now at war with Israel. They are stepping up their resistance. And I said, yes, sure, Israel can do something like this. It can burn Hodeidah. It can cause damage. It can kill civilians. It can further hamper Yemen's economy. But what they cannot stop is this. They cannot stop the people that support Ansar Allah. They cannot stop the people who back Ansar Allah's efforts, and they cannot stop Ansar Allah because if they could, that drone would have never hit Israel. Not only that, but if we can expect this to get worse and worse for Israel. So over the last several months, we've heard Israel say that it will, and we heard it after its strike on Yemen, that, oh, you will pay the price if you attack us. Well, it's Israel that's actually paying a pretty steep price because it is quickly finding itself mired and surrounded by resistance. So here is Hezbollah on the Lebanon front. This just happened July 19th. Israeli officer succumbs to wounds from Golan attack as Hezbollah strikes new settlement. Okay, an Israeli officer died from wounds sustained from a Hezbollah attack in the occupied Golan Heights 2 weeks ago. So this happened actually earlier in July, and it's an update. And it said it attacked a new Israeli settlement on Friday for the first time. Retired officer Ephraim Ben Amram, 25, a soldier in the 53rd Battalion, died of his wounds about 2 weeks later after he was seriously injured in a drone attack launched in the south of Lebanon on a military base in the Golan Heights. Remember, what are the Golan Heights? They are Syrian territory occupied by Israel. At least 19 Israeli troops were injured at the end of June when Hezbollah launched a suicide drone attack on the territory, a Syrian plateau occupied by Israel since 1967. You heard that. Occupied by Israel. Israel does not belong there, yet they are there, okay? As of Wednesday, Israel said 682 of its soldiers have died and more than 4,100 have been injured since the start of the war in Gaza and outbreak of hostilities along the Lebanon frontier. Now, you may think that is small, but most people understand that IDF numbers are likely fabrications, and actually the casualty numbers are probably much higher. While we cannot confirm this, we do know that the fierce fighting, the reason why Israel will not step up their operations against Hezbollah is because they know that whatever Yemen can do, Hezbollah can do to an even greater degree. So an Israeli airstrike destroyed a 3-story building in the south of Lebanon, killing 5 people as of Thursday evening. So this was Thursday, July 18th, including a commander of Hezbollah's elite Redwan operational unit. The commander was identified as Ali Jafar Matuk. A second Hezbollah member was killed, identified as Hassan Ali Mana. So this is what's been happening. They've been killing Hezbollah leaders, Israel. And then Hezbollah strikes back. And Hezbollah is striking back in a pretty fierce way. It has completely emptied out the north of so-called Israel. Okay, and we can see Hezbollah rocket attacks this back in early July, spark fires and destroy thousands of acres. Okay, I think there might be a better picture here. There it is. All right, there is the scene of what northern Israel has looked like earlier this month, earlier the month of July. So you have Israel completely tied up in the Lebanon front. Okay, Israel does not have the capabilities to wage a broader war with Lebanon without being bombarded, right? I've shown that Israeli media itself has said that 1,000 missiles will rain on the head of Tel Aviv from Lebanon should Israel try to wage a larger war there. So you have the Lebanon front, okay? And I'm not even going to get into the Syrian and Iraq Islamic resistance, which is in and of itself significant too. But not only do you have Israel now being just drawn in, right? It is now entrapping itself into a larger regional war with Yemen, a small country that has been impoverished, that has been at war for years with Saudi Arabia and the UAE and the United States, completely decimated, but built up this incredible resistance force with all of its fierce and might and courage and now capability. So Israel is now getting deeper and deeper into conflict with Yemen. It's already mired in a conflict with Hezbollah that it keeps on threatening it's going to expand. But there's one big problem for Israel, and that is that it is being embarrassed. It is being absolutely exposed as a fraud when it comes to the war in Gaza. This is what has to be noted. The Jerusalem Post itself, this is from back in May. This is what is so, I think, just emblematic of what Israel is right now. Israel is a state on the path of suicide. It's a colonial entity on the path toward its own destruction. But isn't that how they all go? Right? So this larger regional war that is being sparked, that Yemen has just courageously stepped up to the plate over, this is Israel's grave that it is digging. Jerusalem Post says Israel has lost the war on Gaza. Israel has lost its war on the besieged Gaza Strip and failed to achieve its declared goals of the war, including eliminating Hamas and returning all the hostage, said Jerusalem Post. Remember, this is back at the end of May, and a damning critique of the occupation's far-right government. In an article published on Tuesday, this was back in late May, the newspaper said that even seizing and occupying the city of Rafah, which it claimed hides dozens of huge tunnels used by Hamas to smuggle weapons, ammunition, weapons, and vehicles, will not achieve these goals. It added that Hamas won on October 7th when its fighters embarrassed the much vaunted Israeli military establishment, invaded military bases, killed many Israelis, and returned to Gaza with hostages. The movement, it pointed out, continues to be a force in Gaza despite destruction caused by the Israeli army. According to Israel's biggest circulation English language daily, established in 1932 as the Palestine Post, only changing its name in 1950, the most significant victory achieved by Hamas has been to put Palestinians back on the international agenda after years of neglect, making Israel a pariah in the world again, and endangering the grand U.S. plan of forging an alliance between Israel and so-called moderate Arab nations. Does it make sense for Israel to continue pressing for the achievement of unachievable goals, or should it shift gears and work towards something attainable? Asked the newspaper. If the answer is the latter, Israel needs new leadership. So this is what Israel is trying to do. They are trying to paint, right? The Israeli establishment is trying to say this is Netanyahu, that he's an extremist. And all those things are true. Netanyahu is indeed a disaster. He's indeed a warmonger, a war criminal, and at the heart of what is going on in Gaza, that genocide. But it is the entire Israeli establishment. We cannot act like Yoav Gallant and these forces now saying that they are opposed to what Netanyahu is doing, are somehow benevolent, are somehow having anyone's interests at heart but their own. They are looking at their own self-preservation first and foremost. And that's what we have to remember, because what we are witnessing here is quite historic. We are witnessing the axis of resistance. Many U.S. observers, Western observers will say, this is all Iran, this is all Iran. But Iran, you can see, is very far away from these operations, no matter how much military aid Iran might give to, let's say, Hezbollah or even Ansarallah. It cannot and does not dictate all of their operations, or any of their operations for that matter. We are seeing Ansarallah take a very just monumental step toward a major escalation, which Ansarallah and the people of Yemen see as absolutely necessary to ensuring the survival, not just of the Palestinian people, not just of themselves and the rest of the axis of resistance, but really for the entire region and the world. We cannot underscore that this, or understate, or just minimize what it means to step up in this moment where so many countries cannot or do not. Remember, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, these countries that all run along the Red Sea as well, right? They have done absolutely nothing. Actually, Saudi Arabia has been re-provoking conflict with Yemen, has been escalating sanctions onto Yemen to try to starve them out. Why? Many people believe it's because it's at the behest of Israel. These countries, of course, have long histories of being essentially CIA cutouts themselves. But in this day and age, where multipolarity is taking hold, where countries like Saudi Arabia are diversifying their international portfolio, saying that they are making bets on BRICS, on China, on Russia, they still have not done anything to the degree that is necessary to step up to the plate for Gaza. Instead, it is the axis of resistance that is doing so. In Yemen striking Israel, it is incredible to hear that Yemen has the capabilities not just to penetrate the Iron Dome, but to do it over and over and over and over again. Israel is going to think many times over about what it just did by bombing Hodeidah. They think that they have scared Yemen, Ansarallah, into giving up. They think that what they did is damage enough to ensure that these kind of operations won't continue. Nothing over the last almost a year now, nothing over the last 7+ months says anything of the sort. What has Yemen been doing? It has been hitting ship after ship after ship after ship. It has been diverting economic activity. It has played a huge hand in Israel's economic ailments. It has been making some of the biggest impact in this conflict that any other force has been making outside of the Palestinian resistance. And so now Israel picking a direct fight with Ansarallah only ensures that its destruction will come sooner rather than later. That is what it ensures, because you can't defeat the people. You cannot defeat a resistance. You can't name a resistance that has been defeated. You can name a resistance that has been held back, that has been pushed back, that has faced challenges. But over the course of history, if you look at this kind of resistance and where it falls, whether you're looking at Vietnam or even Afghanistan kicking out the United States. But if you look at countries like Vietnam, if you look at countries like Korea, we can go on and on and on. There's so many examples where resistance such as this leads ultimately to victory. And given the capabilities, right? These are capabilities that are serious, given Yemen's capabilities, given Hezbollah's capabilities, given Iran. Forget just Iran alone. Iran takes a very measured position when it comes to Israel because it does not want to see a bloodbath in the region. It has the ability to ignite that. It has the ability to bring Israel to its knees if it wanted to, but it doesn't. Why? Because an attempt to do so would, if in fact, engender an absolutely devastating war that would bring everyone else in the crosshairs. It isn't as if Iran and Israel share a border. This would bring in the entire axis of resistance. It would bring in the entire region. We would see a war that would also bring in the United States. And who knows what kind of carnage could come out of that. That is the only reason why Iran hasn't done more than what it has, which has been quite significant in a lot of respects. This is why the axis of resistance as a whole has taken a measured escalatory approach. Yes, the sacrifice has been big, but now we are seeing the fruits being born, and we will continue, I believe, to see more and more attacks on Israel to come. More and more will be coming because at the end of the day, we are talking about a colonial entity. We are talking about a genocide committed by this colonial entity that has no end in sight. And the axis of resistance understands this. And most of the world at this point understands this. Netanyahu will come to Congress on the 24th of July, and he will give a speech talking about how he basically runs the show, how his country's interests, his occupation forces' interests are the most important interests, and that the United States needs to do what it's been doing, which is essentially giving everything that it needs to commit absolute wanton war, criminality, genocide, and massacres. That's what he is going to do. And that is why the axis of resistance is taking these measures to stop it. Now, the axis of resistance obviously needs more help. That help will have to come in the form of people in the collective West, people in the United States saying no more to this genocide and actually putting in a concerted effort and action to stop it from happening. What does that look like? Well, you can let me know in the comments. You can let me know what it may look like wherever you can comment in this video, in this live stream, if you are watching it live. Thank you for tuning in to my latest video. I appreciate all of your support. This channel, however, needs your help. I am seeking to make this channel more sustainable in the long term and upgrade necessary equipment to ensure that this work continues onward and makes progress to give you all of the geopolitical analysis that you all deserve. For that reason, I'm asking you to become a member of my Patreon community at patreon.com/DannyDhaiphong. You can find that link in the video description or in the pinned comment below. For whatever amount you choose to give, just know you are supporting independent media that you can't find anywhere else. Thank you so much, and I look forward to the next video.